Michael Tellinger, welcome back to the show.
Excellent, Russell. Good to be back with you again.
Michael, let's just get right into it. I know your time is always in short supply. The giant mud fossils in South Africa. This is incredible stuff. You've done many presentations on it now. Lots of evidence, so it's not like you're just saying things. Let's just start there. Tell me more about the giant fossils in South Africa.
Well, that's a very important subject, Russell, and possibly, in my humble opinion, one of the most important discoveries in archaeology and anthropology and paleoanthropology in the world in the last 100, 200 years, and possibly ever, because we now have physical evidence of a vast variety of body parts, fossilized body parts from humanoids, probably slightly larger than humans, to several times the size of humans, to 100 times the size of humans, and possibly even bigger than that. I have a museum full of these fossils, otherwise known as mud fossils. It's a slightly different process of fossilization, and we can go into that. But the fascinating thing about this is that this is what has taken pretty much 11 years for my eyes to open to see this. You know, since 2007, I've been walking through these mountains in South Africa and analyzing and studying the stone circles, the ruins. And for those people that don't know about that, a quick reminder that South Africa is now officially the place where you find the largest collection of ancient stone ruins found anywhere on Earth, because we have at least 10 million stone circles that have become known as the stone circles, scattered throughout South Africa and Zimbabwe. And so these ancient ruins were left behind by this vanished civilization that we know very little about, unless you read my books and follow my YouTube channel. We're learning more and more about this vanished civilization, possibly and probably connected to the activities of the Anunnaki. We have the evidence of all the ancient gold mines and the gold mining activity, and so much more since you and I have spoken has come to light regards the gold mines of ancient times and how the gold was mined and so forth.
Are you saying that South Africa is the true cradle of civilization?
Well, certainly some of the creation happened here. What I'm beginning to see is that these beings that occupied the world many hundreds of thousands of years ago, probably millions of years ago, and have come and gone in waves, just to remind us all that we know very little about our human history and the history of our planet, and what we think we know is probably very far removed from the real truth. So we just got to constantly be open to new information and rewrite and restructure our thoughts and our knowledge, and keep adding to the knowledge pool, and that keeps changing the outcome. So it looks like humans and other humanoid beings were created in different parts and different times at different places around the world. And South Africa was most definitely one of those places. It's in oral tradition, African shamanic oral tradition. It's in the ancient ruins that we find here. The physical evidence is around us, not just in the thousands, but in the millions. And there's overwhelming evidence that these ancient structures go back hundreds of thousands of years and not just thousands of years. So as far as we stand right now, Adam's calendar and the stone circles of southern Africa are the oldest structures known to us on Earth to date. Adam's calendar is still a functioning sun calendar today. But then we realize that these are energy generating devices, as we've discussed before. These are not dwellings for people or animals. And this is why they built these stone circles in such large numbers, because it seems that they were possibly generating an atmosphere, a habitable atmosphere, and possibly creating oxygen. And again, I have a lot more supportive material and information that suggests that. But after studying these stone circles and really exposing this information to the rest of the world since 2007, the one thing that became an interesting fascination were the ringing stones, or the stones that ring like bells, that some of your listeners may have heard. If not, go to YouTube or go to my channel, and I'll be launching a new channel very soon with a lot of updated videos on a regular basis. So that's going to be exciting. And look at the ringing stones, or the stones that ring like bells. And I was fascinated by these stones and started collecting them for my museum, which is now home to thousands of incredible tools and artifacts that are priceless and unique that you can't find anywhere else, related to the activity of the Anunnaki, the stone circle builders, those that worked there, those that worked in this area, that lived in this area during that period, and then also exposing the technology that these stone circles used and how they were used to do whatever they were supposed to do, including the gold mining. And in that technology, obviously, also lie the cone-shaped tools and the toroidal stones, or the Taurus stones, that I have shared extensively, especially the one that crashed the TSA security system at the Doha International Airport in 2013 on my way to the USA. So while walking through these mountains and around me and all over South Africa, studying these stone structures that are scattered over large, very, very large areas, and wondering what the hell they were, I kept stumbling upon these strange elongated stones and these weird shaped stones that just don't make any sense. You know, you'd look at these stones while you're walking and go, why is that stone this weird shape? And your cognitive dissonance, actually, that's what happens, is that it's our cognitive dissonance that just keeps us thinking, well, it's just a stone. It's a weird shaped stone. And then I realized that they ring so beautifully, and especially the elongated ones that look like sort of Stone Age clubs or French loaves, loaves of bread in stone. And these are the ones that just ring so beautifully, literally takes your breath away. And it took really until January 2018 for me to get beyond that cognitive dissonance, because at that stage I'd been studying the mud fossil phenomena for about a year or so, or maybe slightly less. And I was fascinated by these mud fossils that I was seeing, especially on Mud Fossil University with Roger Spur, who's really a knowledgeable guy. He can come across a little bit crazy sometimes, but don't let that fool you. He is a really extremely knowledgeable guy. And then one day when we were doing our research expedition in January 2018, so almost a year ago, I had my expedition team here, and we were going through the mountains and just doing all kinds of research. Also researching the effects of the stone circles and Adam's calendar on the human body and the human physiology, and does it have an effect? We'd previously done experiments and found that the stone circles have a tremendous effect on our body, and generally for the positive, but I didn't really have any conclusive results from the guys that did it, because they never ended up giving me the results that I spent many weeks working on with them. So we were walking up the mountains and near the stone circles and so forth, and one particular place we stopped, and we were walking up, and I saw this weird shaped stone again, and it was like this long, thin stone, and I picked it up and I went, what on earth is this? Why is this stone this weird shape? And I put it on one of the stone walls, and I said, by the time we come down from this mountain, I will figure out what the stone is all about and why it's this strange shape. And that's exactly what happened. As we came down, I wasn't even halfway up, 100 meters further up, and I suddenly stopped and I turned back and I realized, oh my God, these are not stones. These are fossils. These are mud fossils. Those things that I've been studying for the last several months, that's what I'm looking at. And I went back and I picked up this long elongated stone and I looked at it and I went, oh my God, this is a rib. This is a rib of a very large humanoid being. You can see where it's attached to the rib cage. You can see the bone. You can see the meat and the muscle around the bone on the two sides. And then suddenly I looked around and I picked up another rib close by and a third rib. So I collected about 3 ribs from that specific site. And then we went further. And over the next 2 weeks, we collected probably well over 100 or actually maybe even 200 mud fossils, which includes ribs, shoulder blades, a heart, a beautiful heart that is so obviously heart. Anyone who's not even studied anatomy can see that it's a heart.
Yeah, the heart's amazing. We'll show a picture as you're talking here.
Yeah, and then the ribs and then hooves of weird, distinct, extinct creatures that look like something that could be something like a centaur or who knows what. And, you know, when you see images of the devil-like creatures in ancient times and the hooves, the hooved feet that they had, hooves like that of creatures that don't exist today, and and bones, fossilized bones and fossilized teeth. It is and jaw bones of beings that are 20, 30 times the size of humans. The heart that you're referring to is probably about at least twice, probably 3 times the size of a human heart. If a human heart is the size of a human fist. So suddenly we now have, and then we went and found reptilian or dinosaur skin attached to the meat, chunks of meat. That is now completely fossilized. Some of these chunks of meat with the skin on top show the growth of the cells underneath into the skin. Some of them have teeth marks or claw marks in it, and that's another thing. I've got quite a few examples of our beautiful claws from some creatures. We have no idea what these creatures look like. So there is an incredible, breathtaking display of these fossils, and there are thousands and thousands of them scattered throughout the mountains here. It is almost like a slaughter field. And that's what brings me back to the evidence of the flood, because these mud fossils, you know, come out of bodies and organic material being trapped in mud, water and mud and soil. So this is a very interesting link and possible evidence of the fact that what I've been claiming for many years now, my belief that this vanished civilization that built all these millions of stone circles was actually destroyed by the Great Flood some 10 or 12,000 years ago. It could have been further back in time. So what we're doing now is we're trying to extract the DNA from some of these mud fossils. I know that it's possible because Roger Spur had it done. He extracted 6 samples of DNA from his fossils. And we've taken some samples to a lab, one of the most advanced genetics labs in the world, which happens to be here in South Africa.
Excuse me, when you say fossils, these are petrified remains?
These are petrified, metamorphosized parts of living creatures. Some are humanoid and some are animals and reptilian and weird creatures that we don't even know what they look like. The interesting thing, Russell, is that these body parts completely and utterly metamorphosize into rock. So when the rock breaks, when the fossil breaks, you don't see a distinct internal structure, as one would expect, but that is not the case. There are, however, very distinct lines in the rock, which is Hornfels rock, which is referred to in geology as metamorphosized quartzite. And it was apparently created by seismic activity and volcanic activity from underneath. Well, that is not true. So this suddenly becomes a huge challenge for geology and chemistry and organic chemistry and metallurgy, because suddenly now these fossils, these body parts, which are clearly, obviously body parts, and anyone with any kind of knowledge of anatomy can see it. So all the medical doctors or nurses or anyone from the medical field, when they see it, they go, oh my God, they see it immediately. It's the uneducated people that sometimes, say, well, I don't know, it could be something else. And I go, okay, buddy, go and do some research and come back, So the challenge here now for metallurgy and for geology is the complete and utter metamorphosis from organic matter of skin, muscle, fats, bone, interstitial fluids and liquids, bodily fluids and liquids, whether it's a heart, whether it's a lung, whether they're ribs or leg bone with all the muscle attached to it, they completely and utterly metamorphosize into what's known as Hornfels rock. And this is why they ring so beautifully, especially when they elongate it, because it's the iron in the blood and in the muscle, that then completely metamorphosizes into the iron and the quartz. The rest of the liquid then becomes the quartz, and the iron in the blood becomes iron, and everything else becomes minerals that make up the content of Hornfels rock. This is spectacular. The one example that you can go into my website and see is the petrified tail of a reptile or a crocodile that we found in August with the next research expedition team. And by the way, people that are listening to this, I will be doing another research expedition in January 2019 for 2 weeks, from the 3rd to the 17th of January. So if you want to join me, please email me at michaeljtellinger@gmail.com and join us. We still have some places left on this tour, on this expedition, should I say. And it's truly an exciting journey of discovery for everyone that participates. And in August, we were up the mountain once again, walking across some rocks that to any geologist would look like a bunch of rocks that just are strewn all over the place, only to realize that what happened, one of our expedition members saw this weird pattern in this rock. So we took photographs of it, and we thought it was a spine, possibly a spine of a child or smaller person. And when we brought it home and started to play with the exposure, the color exposure, it suddenly turned out to be a very clear reptile tail of a small crocodile, maybe just short of a meter long, and that just completely blew my mind. So it's the entire crocodile that was engulfed in mud, and the entire body of the crocodile and the mud around it metamorphosized into this Hornfels rock. And at some stage, the rock broke just before the tail of the crocodile. So somewhere there, among the other rocks, would be the body and the front part and the mouth and the head of the crocodile. And then we looked around and realized that all the other rocks that we previously thought for 11 years, I was thinking, oh, these are just big rocks that come, out of the ground. And I was completely wrong. All those giant rocks are actually mud fossils. So the other important thing for people to realize about mud fossils and the fossilization process, the metamorphosis process of mud fossilization, does not have to take thousands or millions of years. That is where geology and chemistry got it all wrong. In fact, when you study other areas of information like the electric universe and mud fossilization, you will see that this process can take literally weeks, months, a few years, and obviously thousands of years as well. So once you've got a body trapped in mud, which is filled with water, and all the different electrolytes and everything that's around you, and you put electricity into it, whether it's lightning, whether it's natural frequencies from the earth that come up and are amplified in various ways, the way that stone circles amplify them. These electric forces and electromagnetic forces convert and create this metamorphic process very quickly. In fact, I just recently saw a little video on YouTube where somebody shows where they take a twig from a tree and they put it into a beaker of sand and soil and water, and they put an electric current into it for about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes max. And when they take it out, the entire tree twig has metamorphosized, turned to stone. So it's important for people to know that there's some very interesting processes at play. We know very little, again, as we have to remind ourselves. We know almost nothing, and everything we've been told is a lie by those that feed us our textbooks. And this is a very exciting time for this discovery.
Do you have any complete recreations from these fossils? A giant skeleton or...
No, they just strewn all over the place. It seems that that there were these different time eras where the mud fossilization took place, and then these beings were then, at some stage, these rocks, the fossils, then were exposed after they were trapped by mud the fossilization and metamorphosis took place. Then thousands of years of rain washed away the mud. Then those rocks were exposed. But at the same time, and many of those rocks were then, broke and so forth, like that reptilian tail, that crocodile tail, because that looks like it was a whole tail that broke. The whole animal was caught in there. But at the same time, it looks like there was like a slaughtering and a feast and a eating. It looks like many of these beings were being consumed and eaten, like the ribs show signs of cut marks, like somebody was eating the ribs. And the hoofs, for example, one of the hoofs got saw mark. You can see where the bone that goes into the leg, into the hoof, the leg bone, was cut. You can see the saw marks on it. And then something happened that all of these parts that were being eaten, these beings are having a feast or eating each other. Who knows what the hell was going on? It is a real puzzle right now, I tell you.
Why have you come to the conclusion that it must be giants?
Well, because the parts of these beings are sometimes dozens of times and sometimes hundreds of times the size of humans.
But not necessarily giant humans. These could just be giant animals of any kind, right?
Absolutely. They could be humanoid, they could be animal, reptilian, dinosaur, whatever. So we don't know. We just have these body parts. Some of them, as I mentioned, have got very distinct reptilian or dinosaur type skin. And then we start thinking, okay, well, this is the land of the Anunnaki. There's no doubt in my mind that this is where the Anunnaki ruled and reigned supreme, and they would have reigned supreme over the animals. And, are we seeing evidence of the Anunnaki eating some of these animals? Are we seeing evidence of Anunnaki, if they were reptilian, are we seeing evidence of Anunnaki body parts? And are we seeing, is that heart that I have, is that possibly an Anunnaki heart? Because it's about 3 times the size, and that would fit to what most researchers have reached the conclusion that the Anunnaki were possibly 3 times, maybe 5 times the size of humans. Now, this is all very important new breakthrough discovery that needs to be really explored.
Tell me about finding that heart. Did you find it personally? Was it one of the people in your expedition?
The heart was found by me, like the ribs and the shoulder blade as well. And the heart, I was actually looking at another stone that looks like a giant foot, where you can see where the leg bone came to it. You got the little indentation where the bone, like like a ball and joint, would have sat in the joint, in the hollow, and then right in front of it, there's this very disturbed circular area where the tendons would have gone in, and that was cut off. And you can see that the tendons that it's just the rock is beautifully smooth. It's the shape of a foot. And then there's hollow, and right in front of it it's exactly the shape of our foot, where in front of your bone that goes into your leg, into your foot, there are these tendons that go into the front of into your foot to lift the foot up. So the tendons, when you lift your foot up towards, that the tendons do the lifting, and that's exactly that. So I was looking at that particular giant foot, and I was standing, my right foot was on some stone, and I was slightly uncomfortable, so I looked down to see the stone, and to put my foot away and not to stand on another one or twist my ankle. And I looked down and I went, wow, that's a weird shaped stone. Let me have a look at that. And I picked it up, and at first I thought it was the front part of a finger, because it got that little shape. I've got another front part of a finger, which is 100 times of a human. So this is why I say these beings are very large. And this, at first I thought this was a finger, and then I looked at it and I turned it around. I saw where the aorta came in, and I saw the shape of the heart, very obvious and very distinct. I saw the coronal artery, that artery that comes across the front of the heart that spreads out like the delta. And I went, oh my God, this is a heart. And my heart nearly stopped, because that's a major discovery. That's priceless,
I agree. It's a spectacular piece.
And one of the funny things, or amazing things, should I say, I think this was our second day that we came down from the mountain, and we'd brought back probably about 20 or 30 or maybe 60 fossils at that stage. And they were all laid out on my stoop, on the balcony at Stone Circle Lodge and our office and the museum. And I was sort of standing there wondering, and I was holding the heart in my hand, looking at it, thinking, wow, this is amazing. And the car pulled up, and this couple got out of the car, and they started walking towards me, and the guy jumped up, and he reached out and said, hey, Michael Tellinger, hi, I've been watching your videos, and it's amazing stuff. And then he looked at me, and he said, wow, that looks like a heart you're holding. And I went, yeah, I think it's a heart too. Do you think it's a heart? He says, yeah, that's a heart. I'm a surgeon. I said, wow, okay. I said, where are you surgeon? He said, at the Johannesburg General Hospital. That's the biggest hospital in South Africa, or one of the biggest hospitals. So here's a surgeon from the Joburg Gen. So I said to him, look, are you prepared to look at some of these other parts and tell me which body parts these are? So he said, sure. So I got a 5-minute video of this guy going through all the different body parts and telling me what they are.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that giants could have existed. All animals were bigger in the past. Dragonflies had a wingspan of a meter, for example. I don't know what exactly, maybe the gravity of the earth changed, or maybe resources were scarce, but all animals became smaller.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that, and there are many speculations as to why that happened. I'm not sure what the real reasons are. I don't necessarily believe all the reasons that are thrown out, but giants in our history is a reality that we just need to embrace and become comfortable with it. All ancient cultures tell us about the giants. The Bible tells us about the giants over and over again. All ancient scripture tells us about the giants. The book of Enoch goes into great detail about the giants. It's just everywhere around us. And some of these guys weren't small. You know, in the book of Enoch, it tells us that the giants were 3,000 ells tall. Now, 1 ell is just less than half a meter. So 3,000 ells would make that 1.5 kilometer. That's just short of a mile tall. Okay. And then recently I stumbled upon an ancient oral tradition that says that the earth was originally formed and shaped by 144 giants that were 3,000 ells tall, or about a mile tall. And these giants shaped the mountains, and they shaped the rivers and the valleys, and it was like a giant's playground. And then these giants died and became part of the natural landscape. And when you start looking around and you have an open mind, things start to get very, very weird.
Yeah. You see, we've accepted this view of history, and everything that we learn now is some sense of refinement. We keep adding it to the original story. It's not as though we throw it all away and start new.
No. We can't throw it all away, but we got to find the golden threads that tell us the truth. And this is where you find everywhere. So, I am now of the opinion that everything we've been told and taught is a lie. And that lie has been told by design, on purpose, to dumb us down, to keep us at a very low level of consciousness as a species, so that we can be abused and enslaved for a long time, so that we can be used as the slaves for whatever beings are using us as slaves. We were created as slaves for the gold mines in any case, and we continue being slaves on different levels now. Right now, it seems to be more still for the gold, I believe, in many ways, because we don't know where the gold goes to. We're mining more gold now than we've ever mined before. So it's very interesting. And the other thing is that I've been dealing with channelers and psychics and shamans from all over the world for 11 years now regarding these structures here, and it's the same story that comes out. It's a repetitive story from hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people now. So the statistical probability that all these people are wrong and they're all making it up is impossible. So we can apply statistical probability as a scientific argument. After all, that is, in theoretical physics and theoretical maths, that is the number one argument that is used all the time. To give us what is sold to us as science, as mainstream science, is actually mostly theory based on statistical probability. It is pseudoscience in every possible way. And that's what mainstream academia always, that's what they gloat about. They say, oh, well, we're science, we're a university, we do science here, you guys are pseudoscientists and all that. And it's actually completely the reverse. So, you know, we should know by now that the education system is completely controlled and manipulated, and they give us textbooks filled with lies and disinformation to make us believe what they want us to believe, so that they create a obedient labor force that keeps marching to the beat of the drum of the global elite. That's a beautiful, simple story, and this is why, you know, and this is why this brings me to the Ubuntu movement, and it always does this it does the full circle. So once we realize that we're enslaved, we got to go back and find out, okay, when did this enslavement begin? And you realize that money was introduced at a certain time in human history as a complete, fully evolved and complete philosophy of enslavement. And the first kings that were appointed by the gods, the priest kings, were the first ones to issue the first money. Their temples were their banks, and they issued the money in the form of clay tablets, exactly the way we issue money today on paper. And those tablets were worth whatever was written on them, and they would take money, they would take silver and gold and precious things from people and give them a clay tablet in return. It's just ridiculous. And in essence, so just to finish on that, so this whole cycle of realizing how little we know about our human history also unfolds and brings to light the emergence of money, the creation of money, how it was created and how it controls humanity. And who still controls the supply of money today are the same people that control the world, that have been controlling and running the world for thousands and thousands of years.
Just a quick question. You mentioned that Adam's calendar is the oldest known ruins, even older than Göbekli Tepe?
Oh, much older than Göbekli Tepe. Now, Adam's calendar is probably close to 300,000 years old. It's just incredibly old. It's so badly ruined and destroyed. It's a miracle that we've actually found it, you know. And all honor must go to Jan Heine for having his eyes open in 2003 when he spotted it from an aeroplane and a helicopter, and then came back the next day to look at it and realized this was an intentional structure, not just random stones. He recognized it immediately, and then he did the original measurements to realize that it was actually a calendar aligned to the cardinal points of the earth. And then by years and years of deduction and analytical research, it is now, at this stage, I believe it was created by Enki, the Sumerian supreme entity, the Anunnaki supreme and Sumerian deity, Enki, who was also the head of the gold mining operation here in southern Africa and around the whole world. And, you know, this Anunnaki entity, Enki, is responsible for many things that are connected to our presence on Earth, from our DNA to the gold mining. And it seems at this stage that Enki created that about 285 to 200, well, maybe 300,000 years ago. And this is interesting because I found a little passage in one of Zecharia Sitchin's books that describes that site perfectly. And Zecharia Sitchin never knew about it because he died before he actually knew about the site. And he never saw it himself. But when I picked up one of his books, I found a page that says, Enki built himself a special place of observing on the edge of a cliff in the deep Abzu, aligned with his abode in the north and the peaks. And 40 Shar after arriving on Earth. That's how it begins. 40 Shar after arriving on Earth. Enki built himself a special place of observing. And that's like describing Adam's calendar to the T. On the edge of a cliff, on the mountain in the deep Abzu. The deep Abzu would be South Africa, while the Abzu was most likely Zimbabwe. And the deep Abzu was like the deep south, further south. So it just perfectly describes Adam's calendar. And when you do the calculations based on Sitchin's calculations, Adam's calendar turns out to be between 280 and 300,000 years old.
You've spoken many times about the elimination of money, the ultimate tool of control, as a way to free the human race. The late Jacques Fresco and I spoke about this very thing multiple times. Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on cryptocurrency? Is that somehow a way out of this tool of control?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, and I'm beginning to believe not. At one stage, I still thought it may be, but I'm beginning to think that it's just another form of exchange and control. And he who has more of the cryptocurrency will have more to barter and trade with, and he'll be, he'll rule the roost. That's how it works. Any form of exchange or barter or trade is driven by those who have more to trade. So ultimately, they will control everything around them. And cryptocurrency is just another one of those. And I know many people will disagree with me, but as long as you attach value to or anything that you want in return for your work, then we have a problem. We have to start realizing that money does nothing and people do everything. You can put a bag of money on the table. You can put a trillion cryptocurrencies in a computer. It's going to do nothing. People have to get up in the morning. They have to plant the seeds and grow the food, build the computers, harvest the food, bake the bread, make the clothes, build the houses, and create the technology that we use for the benefit of humanity. And that's in essence where, I love Jacques Fresco, I love the Venus Project, but in essence where we differ is that the Venus Project is very strongly driven by technology and tries to prescribe to humans how we should live. I might be wrong, but that's what it seems like. While the Ubuntu movement suggests very strongly that the technology that we need will come out of the communities that are created by the people, and we will create whatever technology we need because everybody will be free to create, and the inventors are not only encouraged but supported by the rest of the community to invent technology and everything else, whether it's from growing food to supercomputers to levitation technology and what have you, to curing cancer, etc., and all disease, which we know we can cure. So all of this is supported. So you can imagine when the community does this for themselves, the community will drive what technology we need and not the other way around.
How is Ubuntu contributionism progressing? I want to say a report came out recently that minimum wage in the United States does not cover rent anywhere in the country. If necessity is the mother of invention, Ubuntu may simply become the necessity.
Well, it's exactly what's happening. It's just got to a point where people everywhere live in misery. People everywhere, most people are desperately unhappy with their lives. They know that this is not what they were born for, to get up every morning, 5-6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes having 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, to keep your family alive. This is not what we were born for. And more people are realizing and waking up that they're just slaves in some sort of a horrible system that they're trapped in. And all of us are trapped in it, some of us more than others. And it's all controlled and manipulated by money, and those that control the supply of money. Not those that have the money, those that control the supply of money. Very big difference. So until we find a way to break that, we'll forever remain slaves to this and possibly become more and more enslaved, where we have zero human rights. And it's rapidly moving towards that, especially with a move now to remove cash from society. That is one of the most dangerous things that can happen. The moment there's no cash in society, that means we become completely at the mercy of the banks that can shut off your credit card, and there's just no money. You can't get anything. At least cash is still king. If you have cash, you can go and buy stuff. So we must prevent the banks and the banking system to eliminate cash from our society. I was in Sweden recently, and some shops don't even accept cash anymore. So Sweden seems to be driving this cashless society, and it's so dangerous. So I just want to warn people against this. Now, with the Ubuntu movement, it's growing so quickly, it's a big problem because there's just not enough funding, and I can't carry this thing on my own, or with very generous funding, but very few people that help to fund the movement. So, out of potentially 60 to 100,000 members around the world, we have less than $2,000 a month funding, and that's just not enough for me to give up what I'm doing and just run the movement. So it's become a real strain on me. And right now, at the worst time, where suddenly people all over the world want to go and talk to their mayors, because they're so inspired by the one small town can change the world strategy, because it is such a complete and fully evolved philosophy and plan of action that once people see it and they really get into it after watching the video or reading the manifesto and the plan of action, people get it all over the world. And I'm getting hundreds of emails a week from people everywhere that want to now take this on and go and talk to their mayors and implement it. And I don't have time to respond to everyone and engage with everyone and help to manage it. And this is a big problem. So the success of this is actually a bigger problem than anything else.
You're a good guy. I have no doubt that any money that is given to you for the purposes of Ubuntu goes directly to that purpose.
Well, it's the first purpose it needs to go to is to run the office. If we can't run the Ubuntu office, then there's nothing. Then everything shuts down. That's it, so period. And then once we can run the office, then we can start looking at setting up another office in the USA and another office in the UK and so forth. And then every country can manage their own activities and set up meetup groups, because that's the main thing right now. We're promoting the one small town can change the world strategy by asking people to set up meetup groups in their towns and areas and suburbs. And our new website, which is hopefully going to be upgraded very soon. After the last online webinar that I did, I have about 4 or 5 or 6 IT people that have come together, that have formed a little group that are now helping me to fix the Ubuntu Planet website and create an online portal where people can meet and create online meetup groups and so forth. So at least that there's some positive progress there. And then I just want to ask people, if you resonate with this, go onto the website and sign up as an active member. Donate $11 a month. That's all we ask for the price of 3 cups of coffee a month. You can be part of the fastest growing movement of consciousness, and a movement with a real plan of action for the future of humanity. A plan that is workable, feasible, that's already been implemented with great success, and is about to be implemented with even more greater success over the next 12 months.
So you've already established a beta test.
We have. It's going not as well as we hoped, but in some areas incredibly well. In North Frontenac, Canada, and the one thing that came out of that is that when Mayor Ron Higgins initiated this program in just about a year ago, it was incredible. He suddenly became the hero of the people. Obviously, there were a few naysayers in the town, calling him, he was getting into some sort of a cult, and that's just always that kind of thing. But very quickly, he started getting the support, thousands of emails from people from all over the world, and inventors and doctors and healers and farmers and etc. saying, we love what you're doing, we want to move to your town and participate in this. So that's already a huge thumbs up for a mayor that does that. And secondly, the investors started to call and say, I love what you're doing, I want to invest in your town. And the last I spoke to Ron Higgins, the mayor of North Frontenac, he had between 13 and 20 investors on standby to invest several $1 million into that little town. That is unheard of. There is no small town in the world that has a queue of investors lined up to invest. The towns are begging for money. So clearly our model is something that people love, it resonates with them, and they want to participate. From the people and their skills to the investors, because they realize that they're putting their money into a very good investment and return. And on that note, I need to say that if people think that we're going to create this Ubuntu, one small town, utopian community and a world without money, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen with a load of money. We have to apply the mantra that I've been sharing for the past several years now, that we have to use the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation. Okay, we cannot fight, oppose, or resist the existing structure. We have to use the existing structure to create a new structure in which the existing structure is no longer necessary. It's the wise words of Buckminster Fuller. And I discovered this the hard way myself.
Brilliant stuff as always. I know you're out of time. Is this new website the only place that my listeners can donate to the Ubuntu contribution as a movement, or
Yes, it's ubuntuplanet.org.
Yep.
That's the main website for the Ubuntu movement. and we're now hopefully going to have an active page for every country. So there's going to be a national coordinator for every country. We finally found a way to do it with the help in the last 2 weeks, with the help of the people that have got involved on the IT side. So I'm quite excited about that, because I'm no longer alone and begging for help from IT people. It's been tough. And so go to ubuntuplanet.org and you can become a member, and for the price of 3 cups of coffee a month, you can go to sleep every night knowing that you're actually doing something and about it to help a movement grow into a position of power and strength that we can actually push this through right to the end.
Could you do me a favor, Michael? Could you pass on Ron Higgins' information?
Absolutely, I'll do that.
Because I'm a Canadian. I live in Vancouver, the most expensive city in North America. It's more expensive than Manhattan. And everybody, it's like all over the street. Nobody can afford to live anymore. This is something that I think myself and many of my neighbors and friends would want to get more involved with.
Yeah, but it starts with the meetup groups, you know.
Yeah.
David, Michael, and Katie in Kansas City started in just more than a year ago. Started with a meetup group of 6 people. By the time that I got there in December last year, so that's not even a year ago, their meetup group grew from within 1 month grew from 6 to 60 people, and within the next three to 5 months it grew to 300 or 400 people. So it just shows you, once you start people coming together of like mind, talking about this and knowing that there's a plan, this philosophy resonates with people so strongly. And once you know the plan and you see that it's not just people getting together frustrated with the system, but with a solution, that's what motivates and gets people excited. And that's in these meetup groups. That's where you then get the paperwork together. The proposal to the mayors is already on the website. You can download it. You can read and learn the manifesto, and then approach the mayor. Once you've got a full understanding in your meetup group, approach the mayor, present a letter to the mayor. It's a 10-page introductory letter. The mayor cannot refuse it because it's so obvious a benefit to the town and the community and the mayor, him or herself. And if the mayor doesn't decide to do so, then within your meetup group, you then find the most appropriate person to run for mayor during the next elections. So that's how this thing is being planned. There's
so much to learn, and there's so much to unlearn. Forget everything you thought you knew. Visit michaeltellinger.com. Any other sites or books? Are there any new books or anything you want to plug, Michael?
Well, not new books, but our tours. That's what really keeps us alive here, is people that come on the tours. So come visit us in South Africa. Go to michaeltellinger.com, or also stonecircletours.co.za. Look at the tours that we have, and on michaeltellinger.com, there are 2 journeys coming up. One is already fully booked in January with Sam Osmanagic from Bosnian Pyramid. And then in March is our big annual Sacred Sites Adventure Tour. So if people want to join us in March, we still have a few places open. I think there are about 6 places open. But you're going to have to be fast. Please go online and respond. Or email me so we can get you on this tour for March. So we're going visiting South Africa, Swaziland, and Zimbabwe, from all the ancient sites here all the way up to Great Zimbabwe ruins, and then the fascinating balancing rocks right at the north of Zimbabwe, near the capital of Harare. It's a journey of discovery that you will never forget. So that's what I'd like to plug. It's a true coming together of people that want to connect with the spirit of the land, the spirit of the animals, and the spirit of the ancestors here in Southern Africa.
Michael, I really appreciate your time. I know it's in short supply, and I know you're busy and tired and just absolutely drained with all the work that you're doing. So an honor. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Russell. You stay well and keep up the good work, my friend.
Okay. Have a great day. Thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Ciao for now.